If I was a betting man and I was playing comic book bankruptcy bingo, my money would have been on Valiant Comics being the first small publisher to declare bankruptcy and essentially go out of business, or perhaps IDW, but we knew AfterShock Comics were also in a lot of trouble. They haven't been able to make their payments to creators for quite some time. We've been hearing about this for months, and it turns out they are the publisher. The first domino to fall, as basically the comic book industry is starting to fall apart. There's a lot of spin going on talking about, oh no, this doesn't really mean anything. This is perfectly fine. It's just natural that companies that don't make a whole lot of money in industries that are collapsing before your eyes just start declaring bankruptcy. It's just all normal. It's part of the normal evolution of an industry that's absolutely thriving, right? Because this is the best year in comic book history. It's never been a better time to be an American comic book publisher than right here, right now. If you listen to Heidi McDonald and Tim Seeley and all the other frauds out there that don't want to face up to the facts that they've helped destroy an entire industry right before our very eyes. We've got all the details here. I'm going to talk about some of the spin specifically coming from the popverse.com. There are many sites out there associated with comic books trying to spin this as if it's no big deal, as if this isn't another symptom that American comic books have a big time problem. We talked about the financial issues facing Fat Jack's Comics in Philadelphia yesterday, and today we're going to talk about AfterShock Comics. Less than a week after releasing a statement in response to allegations of late payments of creators and other debtors, AfterShock Comics has filed for bankruptcy in the state of California. The company, headquartered in Sherman Oaks, has filed under Chapter 11 of the U.S. Bankruptcy Code, which allows the company to remain in business as it seeks to reorganize and create a plan to repay debtors over time. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Obviously, bankruptcy has its place in business. It's there for a reason, to where you can make some mistakes, have a pause on your debtors and what you owe, maybe consolidate things. Maybe you can work out some other ways of paying that and maybe keep the business going. But this feels a lot worse than that because of the state of the American comic book industry that we're in. We're still waiting for Valiant Comics and IDW to shut down, which I imagine happens within the next 18 to 24 months. We're also well into a recession right now, and it sounds like it's not an American recession. This is a global recession. It's going to be affecting everyone pretty much across the world. So you can imagine now is not a very good time to be declaring bankruptcy and having financial issues. We're talking into the tens of millions of dollars and hundreds of creators. I'm actually going to show you the list here in a few moments. And this is a plague on comic books right now. It's not just AfterShock. It's not just the small publishers that are having issue making their payments to their creators. It's Marvel. It's DC. We're hearing about it across the board because finances right now, despite being the best time in the history of the comic book industry, are not very good. A lot of people are being screwed over right now, yet the shill media refuse to acknowledge it. Oh yeah, nothing to see here. This is just normal business. This is business as usual. Everybody just goes out and declares bankruptcy after they can't pay hundreds of creators into the tens of millions of dollars. And it's not like AfterShock is a really big publisher out there. I mean, sure, I like We Live, and I've even liked the follow-up series, but not nearly as much as the first one. I think We Live is very good, but that's just one series. They've also got Kaiju Score, which I think was kind of a success for them. This company is in dire straits, and a lot of the creators who are likely counting on the money to be paid to them owed by AfterShock are going to get screwed over royally in the end. AfterShock's filing estimates that it owes somewhere in the region of 200 to 999 creditors with liabilities in the region of $10 to $50 million. Amongst those creditors are printers, distributors, and creators, with many listed in the filing itself. Last week, facing social media criticism over late payments, AfterShock released a statement which reads, "The truth of the matter is, the company is addressing late payments as outstanding funds owed to the company come in. There are non-payments. Everyone who is owed money will be paid. We recognize our obligations and consider creator compensation our number one priority. We apologize for this situation and are making our best effort to rectify it as quickly as possible." My oh my, what a difference a week makes. I think they've come to realization that with the money that they have coming in, even the money that's probably owed to them that they're likely to receive, they're not going to be able to pay all these creditors, and most likely not the creators themselves. They'll be lucky to get pennies on the dollar. But the comic book industry has never been better, people. That's what we're told on a daily basis by a legion of morons who can't acknowledge the truth as it's staring them in the face. DC can't make payments. Marvel can't make payments. Comic shops are going out of business. There are comic shops that are no longer specializing in comics. They're specializing in Magic the Gathering. They're specializing in Funko Pops and stuff like this. There are so many shops that I've talked to, owners, and we're talking dozens at this point, where comic books, even though it's a comic shop, have become the third or fourth most important product in their shop. It's not what pays the bills anymore because there just isn't enough interest in new comic books these days because they're putting out crap. And we're going to start seeing these smaller publishers pay the price for a decade of stupid decisions, mostly by Marvel, but DC Comics have absolutely caught up with Marvel with all their stupid decisions over the last 2 or 3 years. It's absolutely ridiculous that so many people have to be hurt because two stupid companies have to virtue signal. Because two stupid companies didn't understand the responsibility that they had for the entire industry. They decided to burn it all to the ground in the name of progress, right? We got to find that new modern audience. We got to tweak all these characters. We need to drive the fans and the customers that we do have away. And let's see if everybody else can die in the process. It's just so selfish what Marvel and DC have done. They basically made the comic book industry at this point in America toxic at the moment. The greatest storytelling medium in the entire world. And they decided to sell it all down the river in the name of progress, right? It wasn't ever about the customers. It wasn't about the characters, none of that stuff. It's about making a difference. They're here to change the world. They're not here to entertain anymore. Well, guess what? People weren't entertained and they decided to go find something else to do. So now small business owners that were reliant on Marvel and DC creating buzz in the industry and maybe just getting a little piece of that pie, getting being screwed over left and right. And I'm not saying AfterShock Comics are not to blame in this. And I'm not saying all of their ills specifically are Marvel and DC's problems. If you can't pay your creators, that's on you. You made the contracts and you are obligated to fulfill them. This is part of a bigger problem. And the shill media making all these stupid excuses, acting like London isn't burning to the ground right in front of our faces. It's just so frustrating. This is what the Popverse had to say about the entire situation. Someone familiar with the situation has told the Popverse that AfterShock Comics CEO John Kramer informed employees that the company will be in a better place in a month and the company isn't in any danger of closing. According to our source, AfterShock CEO attributes the bankruptcy filing to a preemptive move to block a creditor who was going to attempt to take over the company. Popverse has been unable to confirm this version of events or the creditor in question. I cannot dispute that there is a creditor out there trying to take over the company. That is essentially what happened with IDW within the last 2 or 3 years. Those things happen within business. But when you look at all the other information surrounding this, the idea that that is the primary driving reason, the real reason they're filing for bankruptcy, absolutely is ludicrous. And yet these guys are publishing this anyway. They never asked a hard question. They never reached out to Poppers and said, hey, we heard this story that you're trying not to get taken over. But what about the 200 people, the 200 comic creators that you actually owe money to, and the $10 to $50 million that you can't pay back right now? Perhaps that might be the real reason that you're in financial difficulties. But they can't even say that. No, this is just a business strategy. It's a preemptive move to save the business or keep some creditor from taking over. You guys are absolutely ridiculous. And every time Graham McMillan or any of the jabronis over there at Popverse or any other stupid comic book shill media sites publish something like this and can't see the truth that's staring them in the face, they just lose a little bit more credibility as if they had enough to lose right now anyway. It's so frustrating being one of the few people out there that's actually willing to acknowledge what's happening here. I don't want comic books to die. I want comic books to thrive. I want Marvel and DC to be bigger than they've ever been. I want AfterShock Comics. I want IDW, Image, all these publishers to have more money coming in, to have more money to go out and create the best comic book stories that have ever been told. But that's not happening right now. And it can't happen as long as you have an army of jabronis out there just lying left and right that won't acknowledge the truth for what it is. American comic books are in trouble. There are a lot of publishers that are likely to get burned over the next 2 to 3 years. We are in the middle of a recession. They drove too many customers away. It was already going to be tough, but made 1,000 times worse when you told everyone who loved the industry, that loved the medium, that loved the characters, to go fuck themselves because they weren't good enough for you, that you need to find a better audience. This is on Marvel. It's on DC. It's certainly on AfterShock Comics for not making their payments. But this is part of a bigger problem. Small businesses are going out of business right at Christmas time. It's sad and it's disgusting the way everyone wants to spin this stuff. You know what's happening? I know what's happening. When are these other jabronis going to admit what they already know? Comic books are in trouble. The next publisher that I believe will go out of business will be Valiant Comics. I've talked about this. That was my favorite publisher up until about 4 or 5 years ago when they went to absolute crap. Not surprisingly, that's about the time that Heather Hontos was brought on board to be one of their editors. I talked about the issues that Valiant are undergoing right now and why I don't think that they can come out of this, and how Marvel and DC affected that as well. If you can't see the video, there's also a link in the video description.